We're gonna go over the class tuning changes that are coming March 17th, which is literally the day the raid comes out, the first heroic week. These are the major class tuning changes that they said that were gonna happen. They're gonna have a series of 4 total passes of class tuning for the season. One's gonna happen at the beginning of the week before the raid starts, or when the raid starts. Another one's gonna happen after the raid, the first week of the raid, and then 2 more after that, cap it off for the season. The final one's gonna come after the raid has been completed on Mythic. So, Blood DK, first one up. Blood DK looks like it's getting some damage buffs across the board on Exterminate, Reaper's Mark, Wave of Souls. Deathly Blows now increases damage of Death Strike. They basically doubled it, a little more than double. Bind in Darkness now increases the damage of Blood Boil. Wow, that's a pretty big one. Was 10%, now it's 30%. Unholy, all damage reduced by 20%. Holy, got a flat 20% nerf across the board. Epidemic has been increased by 10%, so you can consider that a 10% nerf for Epidemic. And Virulent Plague damage has been increased by 15%. If I'm guessing here, what they're trying to do is take damage out of the pet build and put some of it while lessening the nerf of the disease builds. But that's still crazy. 20% across the board is wild. Frost did not get any love, so it doesn't look like Frost is getting a major buff. So we have to see basically what happens now if you're either going to be playing Frost or Unholy after these changes. We'll probably have to check in with some of the DK specialists in the guild, but 20% is a lot. Devour Demon Hunter, all damage dealt reduced by 4%, so they also got a little slap on the wrist here from this as well. Immolation Aura damage increased by 10%. Havoc, hold up. Havoc coming out of the woods here. Immolation Aura damage increased by 10%. Burning Wound bonus to Immolation damage reduced 35%, so it's got a 5% nerf there, but not that big of a deal because the Immolation Aura is going to be buffed by 10%. So it looks almost like they just wanted to put it as consistent damage instead of a proc bonus, it seems like. Ragefire damage increased to 35% of Immolation Aura. Critical damage was 30. Interesting. Essence Break damage increased by 10%. Glaive Tempest damage increased by 10%. Eldrachi Reaver getting some love. Their damage was increased by 8. Fury of Eldrachi's damage increased by 8. Throw the Fight bonus haste increased by 8, so 2% buff there. Reaver's Mark also got a 1% buff. That's not that crazy, but overall, if you take these all into consideration, it looks like Eldrachi overall has got a nice little buff going into the first week of raid. Devour may switch, or Devours may switch to Havoc because of this. It's going to be really dependent on comps, I feel like, on how the comps play out for this. Vengeance also got a 10% damage increase. Tanks, Immolation Aura also. So basically the similar buffs for Eldrachi on both specs, Havoc and Vengeance. I think this is overall a big W for Havoc in general, because it felt like it was the stepchild of the class with the current balancing. So this is good to see. I personally am a fan of Havoc. I was considering playing Havoc. I did not like Devour at all. So for me, this is a big W. Puts this back on my radar for potential alt for me. Okay, all damage increased by 20%. There was no way they're gonna let balance stay the way it was. And as we can see, it's getting love. Thank God it's not applied to PvP though. I will say that. Thank God this are buffs for PvE purely, because in PvP, I think it was fine. Surge damage increased by 8%. Starfall damage decreased by 14%. Is a good change, because basically what they're doing here is moving the damage off of Starfall, giving it to Star Surge. This is going to help your single target. I don't think by much, but it's still better than what it was. And if you take into account the 20% damage increase, this is going to be very good for basically trying to funnel and do single target damage. Now we got to see how it plans out, but it seems like it's going to help with their single target, which was some of the issues that they were having. These whatnot. Wrath damage increased by 10%, which again, just like the single target on Star Surge, this is also looking like a good buff for single target. Elun's Chosen, Lunar Calling increases Starfall's damage to your primary target by 120. Really making it that you're just gonna go Elun's Chosen for keys, it seems like, with this. But also, this is going back to my previous note that this is more funnel, right? Because you're improving the target's damage with the Starfall by 20% on top of the 20% that they're getting from just the flat across the board, that could be pretty interesting. Like, I could possibly see where balance may feel much better on those fights that you need to just pump a lot of damage into one target while cleaving, and Chosen could be a choice for that. So that's pretty good. I think that's a good one. Season 1 set 2-piece had their damage reduced, which is shooting stars damage, which again is going into the nerf for the AoE, and their eclipse generation was nerfed a little bit, so they probably felt that there was way too much generation coming out of the eclipse. I don't know why they did this. I don't see the point for that, to be honest with you. That's a weird change. Season set 4-piece, chance for Star Surge or Starfall to generate an exploding shooting star reduced. They're reducing the damage of the procs pretty much. Fixed a bug causing an exploding shooting star to increment orbit breakers count by 1. Bug fixes, whatever. Feral. Damage is getting increased by 6%. That's good. Rake is getting a buff. Huge. They needed it. Rake felt pretty insignificant outside of your Berserk windows. What I was playing already, it felt a little rough. Rip damage also is getting, the bleeds across the board are getting a nice little buff on top of the 6%. I like that. Swipe is getting a buff. That's good. Rampant ferocity damage increase. Unseen swipe damage increase. This is huge. The Apex talent. This is something that I've been looking at when I was playing it, and I definitely felt like the procs on the Apex didn't seem that significant. So this is really nice to see. And they're definitely nerfing Frantic Frenzy. I felt like this was going to happen because just playing it, Frantic Frenzy was doing a lot of damage, especially the more targets you pulled. I knew this was coming. But considering they're getting an overall 6% buff, this is not going to feel as bad as you think it will. Be honest, you probably won't even notice this if I'm being honest with you. Also funny here is that you may notice this, because I noticed this. Our Frantic Frenzy was essentially getting a free hit this whole time. But I noticed this today, actually, when I was mass pooling while questing. It kind of threw me off guard. I was like, wait, where's that last unseen attack coming from? And it was because Frantic was proccing an additional time. So that's cool. Overall, good changes. I like these changes. All right, Guardian Druid, Moonless Knight. All right, here we go. This is the big one because Guardian Druid is being a menace everywhere right now. Moonless Knight now causes your direct damage melee abilities to deal 20% additional damage. Thank God. Okay. Was doing more damage than Feral. Wild Guardian rank 4 now causes Echo to deal 300 increased damage. Was 150%. All right. So this is just their Apex talent pretty much. Upping the final rank of the Apex talent. Ability damage, excluding Moonfire, reduced by 20%. Oh, wow. Interesting. Ability damage. I wonder why specifically ability damage. And Moonfire damage reduced by 10%. Druid the Claw damage dealt to Ravage by its main target reduced by 20. Oh, that rip. Druid of the Claw reduced by 23%. Killing Blow now increases Maul, Raise, and Samish damage by up to 70. Was 100%. So this is a 30% nerf. Strike for the Heart now increases Mango damage by 10. So they cut this in half. And Bestial Strength now increases Maul by, so they cut this by half as well. And their healing was ooh, man, this one's a little rough, boys. Hard for me to say that it wasn't deserved, but to them to specifically target the hero talent, the hero spec that hard. I don't know about that. I need to check in with Guardian Druid players and plus, but I'm assuming this is gonna bring them down on the tier list for M plus after these changes. Especially when Havoc or Vengeance just got the damage buffs that they got, in the AoE on Vengeance is probably better than Guardian at this point. This is what happens when these classes fly too close to the sun this early, man. Honestly, I think everybody knew this was coming. This is a rough one. Guardian Druids are not going to be happy. Evoker, Devastation, Scale Commander, Mass Disintegrate damage bonus for each missing target reduced to 10%. So that's 5% nerf. That's not bad considering how much devs. Wow, evokers are flying under the radar, I feel like, or just the Blizzard eye, the gaze of Blizzard's eye is just not looking at devokers right now. It may come later, who knows, but considering the damage that they're doing in Mythic Plus or in Mythics right now, Mythic Zeros, which could also change with gear, but considering what they were doing on beta 2 with their damage, I totally expect them to get a little more than just a 5% nerf on their Scale Commander damage, especially on Disintegrate. Curious to see how that pans out. I feel Devastation is gonna feel pretty nice. Skill Commander Mass Eruption damage bonus. Each missing target reduced to, so they did the same thing for Augmentation that they did for Devastation. Molten Embers damage bonus reduced to 15%, is a 10% change. Duplicate rank for stat bonus reduced to, okay, expected this, because if this would have stood at 100%, I don't see why you wouldn't bring 2 evokers a race. If this was 100%, 2 augmentation evokers, because this essentially was, the bonus was being doubled at that point as rank 4. So I guess I hits it a bit, but I don't know if that even is that significant of a reduction. Yeah, it could almost sustain 2 clones at that point. We have to see, but the issue that honestly, they probably made this change purely because they didn't want to see a scenario in the race where guilds are stacking them. I can see that being a thing to some degree. Fix an issue that could cause Moats a possibility to apply their buff to a target other than the ally who came in contact with the Moat. Okay. Rewind healing was increased. They doubled it outside of raid. Okay. Let's increase direct healing of Dream Breath by 250%. Red's getting some love. Direct healing of Dream's Breath increased by 20%. And reverse 1% of damage was 2 on the targets with reversion. And reversion healing was increased by 25%. This is going to be really good for Prog. Having the reverse and the healing increase on this, along with the blessings direct healing, this is going to be really good for Prog. Be seeing how many guilds bring for the race, but I don't know. Maybe we'll see 1 or 2 just purely because of the utility on that Mirtha's blessing and the reverse. Okay, survival. Auto attack damage increased by 35%. Wildfire bomb's primary target damage bonus increased to 80%. Raptor strike damage increased by 10%. Raptor swipe now deals 35-70% increased damage to his primary target. So they buffed the primary target damage. And Sentinel had an issue that was fixed, causing sanctified armors to be modified by damage taken and damage dealt increase. So survival got a buff. Interesting, which is wild because I feel like their boomstick build that they run is pretty strong in PvP, but then again, this is all PvE stuff, so I don't know how this is going to pan out. Barb shot damage this Beastmaster. Barb shot damage dealt increased by 35%. Cobra shot damage increased by 100%. That's nice. Dark Ranger Black Arrow initial damage increased by 50%. Does not, none of these affect PvP. That's good, thank God. And Sentinel fixed an issue causing, okay, it's the same bug that was on survival, they fixed on marksmanship as well. Mage Arcane Blast damage increased by 25%. Arcane Barrage damage increased by 15%. Arcane Cleave additional targets receive 40% of Arcane's barrage damage, so they nerfed it by 20%. And Spellslinger damage was reduced to 10%, so they had 15% nerf there. Controlled Instincts Cleave percentage reduced, so they got 20%. It looks like Arcane got, so Arcane Blast, so basically what they did was they took the damage from barrage and cleave, and they, looks like they kind of got into Arcane Blast a bit. It looks like from what I'm seeing here, just as like a base level mage player that hasn't gotten into too deep of the class, to me this tells me that they wanted to put some of that damage in the profile back into blast and remove it from barrage and cleave. So this may mean their AoE is a little better, but their single target is a little worse, if I had to guess. Ignition now increases Flame Strike's ignite damage by 15%. Wow, Ignition got a huge nerf. Okay, their 2-piece saw a slight nerf, and their 4-piece cooldown reduction was reduced. Yeah, damage increase. Oh, okay, good. Their Fireball Frost. Okay, so direct abilities are seeing a damage buff, but their 4-piece and 2-piece got a slight nerf, and their ignition damage got a slight nerf. I haven't played a lot of mage this season, or this tier or whatever, this patch, so I don't really know if that's, you guys are happy with that, but I feel like that's a decent trade-off. It looks like they're taking damage from proxy user inputs. Exactly, yeah. Master of Harmony Meditative Focus now increases damage dealt by Tiger Bomb by an additional 50%, so they nerfed it by half. Master of Harmony Aspect of Harmony stores vitality based on 12% damage done and 6%. Ooh, they cut that in half as well. That's damn. What sucks about this is that Brewmasters typically are known for having good damage, and that's why you typically would bring a Brewmaster. But it's also, being a Brewmaster tank and keys and whatnot is a little difficult too, because you have to run a specific comp to really, you need to run a Fizz comp with it. And if it doesn't have damage, it starts to be less prioritized than higher keys. So it's interesting that they would give Guardian such massive nerfs and then still on top of that nerf the damage of Brewmaster and some of the vitality of it. I don't know if I like this one. I'll be honest with you, because I feel like they should have left this one alone. But again, I'm not sure what their decision was there. Maybe the 30% on Guardian was that egregious that even when they nerfed and they brought down Guardian, they still felt that Brew was still a little bit above that. And so they brought that down as well. But whatever they want their baseline to be, maybe, yeah. Mistweaver, Sheilun's gift increased by 60%. Sheilun gift clouds now increase its healing by 10% per stack, was 33. So the direct healing has been buffed, but then the clouds have been nerfed. J-Fire teaching now increases the transfer rate of ancient teachings by 260. Nice, dude. Okay, it's huge, because what was happening with Mistweavers is that fist weaving and just being a melee Mistweaver was not it. It was actually getting kind of out. But now with the J-Fire teachings getting this buff, now it can be probably comparable to the ranged Mistweaver builds. Fire Stomp damage now transfers into Ancient Teachings at 20% effectiveness. Developer note, J-Fire Stomp's tooltip will be updated to replace this at a later patch. Invigorating Mist Healing increased by 30%. I'm surprised that we did not see any changes to PvP, because a Mistweaver in PvP right now can out DPS a Windwalker if played right. It's kind of crazy, but I do like this because melee monk should be preserved, and this I think is a direction to preserve melee monk. Okay, boys, here we go. Am I gonna be happy? Final verdict damage increased by 30%. Okay, within target damage increased by 25%. Templar slash and Templar strike damage increased. Ooh, does this mean we're gonna? Oh, they also buffed Crusading Strike. Okay, damage increased by 25%. Crusading Strike now reduces auto attack speed by 20%. Yes, dude. We no longer have a 3-second auto attack. This is massive. Oh, that's huge. Oh, I love this. Divine Storm damage reduced by 12%. I understand that. I'll take that hit because Divine Storm was nutty. High Lord's Judgment damage increased by 25%. Herald of the Sun Dawnlight damage. Herald of the Sun got buffed. Okay. Herald of Dawnlight now cleaves 4% of damage it dealt, was 5. I'll take that. Empyrean Hammer damage increased by 30%. Ooh, we may be grabbing that talent node then. Wrathful Descent now deals 35% of hero down for 50. Okay, I'll take that. Hammer of Light damage increased by 10%. Yo! In here, boys! Let's go! I'm happy. The only thing I'm not happy about right now looking at this is there's no mention about the bug fix for Execution Sentence, and Execution Sentence right now is bugged. And we may not even play it. Honestly, I've been checking it out, looking at other pallies and talking with them, and we're at a point now that depending on the fight, we probably won't even spec it, which it sucks because as a capstone talent, you should be wanting to take that. It's just bugged. It doesn't properly work. I'm happy with this overall. I can see why they nerfed Divine Storm damage because the more enemies we had, it gets pretty ridiculous with Divine Storm. And I saw it with Herald of the Sun. There's an interesting build that I was testing with Herald of the Sun with Divine Storm where you could, if it all procs at once, it does a fuck ton damage. No holy changes. Interesting, because holy damage is wild right now in PvP. Discipline Priest. Penance damage and healing increased by 20%. Disc Priest getting a big W. Shadow. All damage increased by 10%. Not applied in PvP. Thank God. Shadow Ward Death damage increased by 40%. Mind Blast. Okay. You need some buffs. Mind Flay damage increased by 20. Idol is off damage increased by 20. Shadow Word Madness damage increased by 20. Holy hell. No, not a Blizzard patch note without having a Psychic Link change. Remember that, guys. Psychic Link now causes direct damage spells to inflict 20% of their damage to all other targets afflicted by Vampiric Touch, was 60%. So Psychic Link gets a nerf, so you guys get nerfed in your AoE a bit. Okay, so it's definitely getting nerfed here. Backstab, Gloom Blade damage increased by 20%. Shadow Strike damage increased by 50%. Eviscerate damage increased. What? Wow. Okay, I guess they're buffing the PvE, but there is zero PvE. Oh, okay, fine. There's a PvP section. Okay, God. All right. Because I was about to say, yo, if Rogue was getting buffed, holy hell. PvE wise, Eviscerate, spitting, auto attacks increase, Black Powder damage reduced, Potent powder damage reduction reduced to 20%. Okay, Mastery. So that means their AoE with Black Powder is getting nerfed. but their single target is getting buffed, which is huge because right now I felt like their single target was lacking. That's a really good change. Trickster is getting buffed. Unseen Blade has a 20% increase. Nimble Fury effect reduced by 50%, was 65%. Cleaver Combatant crit bonus of Shuriken Storm reduced to 10%. It's a little slap on the wrist, but I'm seeing 20% increase on Unseen Blade, which is like why you take Tricksters for that Unseen Blade proc. So overall, I think this is a really good change. It's just you're getting hit on the AoE a bit for subtlety. I think it was the biggest delta. Yeah. Chain Lightning damage increased by 10%. Earthquake damage increased by 10%. Enhancements getting a flat 8% buff. Lightning Bolt damage increased by 10. Chain Lightning damage increased by 10. Okay, so it's just 10% across the board. Healing Rain and Chain Heal getting buffed for Resto Shamans. I know they were complaining about Healing Rain being absolute trash and not even worth pressing. So that's good to see for the healers. What about you Resto Shamans in the chat? You guys happy with this? I know, Sean, you play a bit of Resto Shaman. Here we go. Destruction and Demonology. So Distro's Hellcaller is seeing a 3% nerf on multiple Shadow and Fire damage. Blackened Soul damage reduced by 50%. No way. That hurts. Through the Fellvine now increases Rain of Fire by 6. So nerf across. So Hellcaller in general is just getting nerfed. The Chaos Bolt damage with Hellcallers got buffed. So they basically, what it looks like to me is that they took the Blackened Soul damage and moved it into the Chaos Bolt damage. So may not be as bad. We have to test that out. Demonology. Dominion of Argus and Taurian Inquisitor damage reduced by 5%, and Tauren Jailer damage reduced by 45%, and Lady Sacrilege damage increased by 35%. Grand Warlock Alethis damage increased by 35%. The intention with these adjustments is to ensure that all demons summoned by Dominion of Argus are competitive with one another, avoiding random chance having a large effect on damage output. That's the change. Soul damage reduced by 55%. Manifested demonic soul damage. Holy yo, Demonology got the Guardian treatment. Soul Anathema damage reduced by 35%. Wicked Reaping damage increased by 50%. Demoniac's Fervor now increases damage dealt by Demonic Soul by 200% of the main target of Hand of Gul'dan. This is really good. That's a really good change. Basically makes it that you can, it's similar to like the Boomkin situation where you have to basically funnel into one target really well. Piercing Howl's cooldown increased to 90 seconds. Warrior. Okay, Warrior, let's see. Well, wait. Okay, Warrior has 2 notes here, which is wild after the previous balance pass. Piercing Howl's cooldown increased to 90 seconds, was 30 seconds, and ally speed buff radius reduced to 6 yards with Battle Commander. That's weird. Piercing Howl has been available more frequently than intended and does not align with other similar effects, so we're making changes to bring this ability in line while keeping it distinct among similar effects. Master Warfare's final rank of Heroic Strike now increases the damage you deal to enemies affected by your next class smash by an additional 3%. Stacks up to 5 times, so that means you can get 15% damage increase on your Heroic Strike. Oh no, your next Colossus Smash can go up to a 15% buff. And they had a flat 15% damage buff. Okay, I don't know mechanically how Arms Warrior plays now and if people are happy with it, but having a buff on your Colossus Smash that could go up to 15% and then you get a flat 15% on top of that to everything else, it may help with the numbers. Just TBD. You gotta see how that feels. Fury's also getting a flat 10% damage buff. Slayer chance for Reap the Storm to trigger changed to 20%, so it's gonna happen less frequently, but it's not too crazy. Yeah, it's a little ramping in there. Prot Warrior, Thunderclap now causes your next shield slam deal additional damage and unleash a wave of force, dealing physical damage to all enemies in front of you. So did they just change the Apex talent a bit? In addition to existing effects, enemies damaged by Phalanx Wave of Force deal 5% reduced damage to you for 8 seconds. That's kind of cool. And they increase the damage as well by 10%. These changes are aimed to redistribute the power of protection Warrior's Apex talents to better align with the design goals for Apex talents. Okay, so yeah, try to keep it in line with what prots would be. Oh, here we go, boys. PvP. Tank rolls self-healing reduced by 25% in PvP. So not only did Guardian just get absolutely blasted by Blizzard, but then they lost 25% of their healing in PvP. I am curious to see what happens to Guardians in PvP now. That is crazy. Frost, all damage increased by 10% in PvP. I'll be honest, I can't remember last time I seen a Frost DK in PvP because of how good Unholy was. Devourer's damage increased by 9% in PvP. That's scary. Resto Druid, healing increased by 11%. All damage reduced by 15%. Yeah. I literally watched Yuki 1v1 people as a Resto Druid with feral skills and Convoke. Or Berserk, sorry. Fixed an issue, not Berserk, Convoke. An issue where Convoke Spirit was casting the balanced version of Star Surge and dealing too much damage for Resto. And maybe it right there on why it was actually. That's funny. Dying stars now cause enemies to suffer 25% additional damage from Moonfire and Sunfire was 15%. So balance got a little buff for PV as well. Marksmanship consecutive concussion now slows movement speed by an additional 10. So they're reducing the movement speed reduction for marksmanship. And survival's getting a damage buff. Rare Frost damage decreased by 20% in PvP. Damage increased by 100% in PvP. For Frostbolt, Frostfire Bolt also got a damage increase. Brain Freeze now increased the damage of Flurry by 25%, so they cut it in half. And Flurry damage increased by 75%. So the Flurry is getting more damage. Brain Freeze got a nerf, and Ray of Frost got a nerf, while Frostbolt has been increased. Monk, Rushing Wind Kick no longer deals 20% increased damage in PvP. Jade is right there. I told you, boys, it was happening. Jade Fire Stomp damage reduced by 50% in PvP. 50%. They cut it in half. Tell you, it was doing way too much damage. Mistweaver, all healing reduced by 8% in PvP, and Shaylin's gift healing decreased by 20%. Holy Paladin in PvP, a just reward healing decreased by 50%. Divine Vision, the PvP talent now reduces the cooldown of Aura Mastery by 30 seconds instead of 60 seconds. Aw, Rhett's got a damage nerf by 15% in PvP. Boo! Psychic Shroud now lasts 6 seconds, was 15 seconds. And Disc got their damage reduced. Power Word, Radiance, healing increased by 40%. Okay, that's good for Disc. Assassination Rogue had their damage reduced by 35% and their ability damage reduced by 4. Outlaw got all their damage increased by 12%, while Subtlety got all their damage reduced by 10%. I don't know if this is going to matter. They need to probably up this a little more. I am concerned about this. I feel like Subtlety will still be able to 100 to 0 you in an opener, pretty much. If you don't trinket it or you don't have somebody healing you. Maybe they want it that way. I don't know. Tempest damage was increased by 20%. Earthshock damage increased by 15%. Damage from Dispelling Flame Shock increased by 600%. Damage from okay, Enhancement got the same thing. Resto's healing was increased by 8%, and Healing Tide Totem healing increased by 75%. That's huge. Warlock Affliction, all damage increased by 15%. Shadow Bolt damage increased. Wow, all PvP buffs for Warlock in Affliction. Drain Soul increased. Dark Harvest was reduced. Damage from Dispelling Unstable Affliction increased by 25%. And then Warrior, last but not least, the duration of Intimidating Shout has been reduced to 5 seconds. The duration of Intimidating Shout, when talented into Resonant Voice, surpassed our targets for PvP crowd control duration. Blade Storm damage no longer decreased by 23% in PvP, so their Blade Storm got buffed for PvP. And Slayer Unhinged now casts Mortal Strike, Bloodthirst at 40% instead of 60% effectiveness. So Slayer's Mortal Strike and Bloodthirst got nerfed. Overall, I honestly feel like these changes were all expected. I think I talking about it for the last couple of days, but the classes that I thought were going to get nerfed all got nerfed. The classes that got buffed all seem to have got buffed, but some ways that I didn't expect. Devour one is interesting, I gotta say. The Havoc one I'm happy about. Oh my god, Guardian Druids, rest in peace for Guardian Druids. I honestly don't know how this pans out, but that is crazy to me. Guardian Druids got a sledgehammer taken to them. What do you guys are you guys happy with these changes overall? I know Shep is probably not because he's a DK main, but what do you guys think? You guys think these are pretty good changes?